very much, Stephen, and tonight is really a very, very important night for the centre here. And I would like to thank Stephen for, I suppose, discovering Michael O'Connor and the importance of Michael O'Connor as, I suppose, the foremost illuminator and calligrapher as well of the 20th century, and something that wasn't that well known here in Listowel. Tonight we have Stephen here, but also we have Father Brendan O'Connor. Father Brendan is the son of Michael O'Connor, the great illuminator calligrapher, and also the grandson of Michael O'Connor, Dr. Michael O'Connor, who lived in the house here and who was very much involved in the War of Independence and afterwards in the Civil War as well here in North Kerry. So there's a huge connection between the O'Connor family and Listowel, and thanks to you, Stephen, this reconnection now has been revived. And I think before we start, we'll just ask Father Brendan to say a few words about that connection and his connection with Listowel. And just to say as well, there's another woman in the audience here this evening that played a very important connection. Well, there are two people I see them, that's Mary Cohen, and who maybe got the first message, and also Jim Kinney. Both of them were very important in reconnecting Michael O'Connor to Listowel. So, Father, you might just like to give us a background of your connection with this house. Thank you.
I was sitting upstairs a few minutes ago in the room where the exhibition of my father's work will shortly be available. And I was sitting, remembering as a child, sleeping in a bed in that room on my holidays in this house, and very fond memories indeed of this house as a family home, as it was from the beginning of the 20th century, sometime around 1910, thereabouts, when my grandfather, Dr. Michael O'Connor, who was the medical officer for Listowel from around 1906, I think. This house in Listowel was always an anchor point for all of the extended family. I've had the great joy and privilege of meeting some long-lost cousins, literally, which is part of this wider O'Connor family, which was indeed many roots and many connections all over Kerry, between O'Connors and O'Sullivans and Walshes. The interweaving of all of these family names is quite extraordinary. The story of my grandfather is very closely connected with my father's artistic work, because as Jimmy has mentioned, my grandfather spent some time in Ballykinler internment camp during the War of Independence. I was there a few weeks ago, and I saw a replica of one of the huts in which the internees lived, and it was the work of, I hope I'm not cutting across anything Stephen's going to touch on, but anyway, just to say briefly, it was the work of Amy Hollow-Reid, I think, but Stephen has the details on this. Illustrated a newsletter from Ballykinler that arrived home, and my father was a young man, he was a young boy, he was born in 1913, so the war had been, so he was maybe 8 or 9 years of age. He was seeing these newsletters, and what caught his attention, strangely enough for a young boy, was the Celtic illumination around the edges. And he became fascinated with this art form, and that started a lifelong love of Celtic illumination. And it became, the intensity of his work still astonishes me all these years later. I saw it happen, I saw him doing it, as it were. We were accustomed to him doing it. It's been with me all my life, and yet I still ask myself, how could anybody dedicate such time, energy and skill and precision and perfection into this artwork? Not just one creation, but for many years, for the main part of his life. And the only clue I can offer, by way of sort of to what as a thought is that we have, I think, in the Book of Kells, you've got the key, I think, because the art that he practiced was based on the artwork of the Book of Kells. And that artwork, if you think about it, where did that come from? What inspired the monks, who after all had, by comparison with my father, a very rudimentary source. My father used parchment like they did, he used quills like they did, he used steel-tipped nibs, which they didn't have, and he had more, more easily made paints than they would have had. But essentially it was the same material. But what inspired them was that they were illustrating the book of the Gospels. For them, it was the illuminated word. And the intensity of their effort in illuminating, in displaying the glory and the grandeur in graphic form, was, as it were, a tribute to the content of the gospel. It was their way of manifesting their joy and the glory of God, if you like, in artistic form. I think that's the core inspiration for me, the core reason why this art has such potency. Because in my father's life, he was a very devout person. Personally, he was very religious. I think that motive was a part of his life too. And for me, it's the only thing that I can think of that explains the lifelong intensity and love and effort that he put into this particular art form. I think it's why God gave him undoubtedly an exceptional talent, quite extraordinary, but he dedicated that talent, he used it really well, again, to celebrate this particular art form, which is rooted in that concept of illuminating the word.
So I'd like to, you want to send something to Father Rynne?
No, we're going to present these now.
Oh yeah, but it just say to Stephen again, thank you very much. And Stephen has this idea of making Listowel the centre of Celtic Art, that proposal, and have a Celtic trade here in North Kerry. I think it's achievable, Stephen, with your enthusiasm and so on. And just a thank you for that. And he's here tonight with his mother, Edine, who's in the audience here with us. She's down there, and his wife, Reese, as well. And you're all very welcome. And I suppose the leading expert now of the Book of Kells is with us as well here tonight, Dr. Duncan McGowan. So he's over with us, so he's going to refer to the Book of Kells later when Stephen has finished. So we're in for a very, very interesting evening. And I notice as well, there are a number of local artists here as well. I'd like to welcome Miriam O'Callaghan, whose father, Tony O'Callaghan, was like Michael O'Connor. Michael O'Connor worked in the Department of Industry and Commerce. And whenever there was a dignitary coming to Ireland, they called on Michael O'Connor to provide a piece for them, and Stephen will refer to many of those pieces later. I remember whenever there was a dignitary coming to Listowel, she and other people, we always went to Tony O'Callaghan for a piece. So Miriam, it's great that you're here this evening with us in the audience. And just to remember as well, there are people from the McAuliffe family, Pat McAuliffe, who embellished this song for a number of years, and who was widely recognised for the Maid of Erin, but also for many other pieces, and also Paddy Whelan. And when you go out, and Vincent Camely here has done some work on Paddy Whelan, just look to your right and you see the house in the corner there, and that Paddy Whelan did that plaster work. He was a leading plasterer. Again, not apart from Vincent and a few more, a lot of people wouldn't know who Paddy Whelan is, but Vincent has done a very interesting book now at the moment that will hopefully will get his due recognition. Then you have Paddy Fitzgibbons, and there's a wonderful piece up in the school of Paddy Fitzgibbons, and also in the credit union, and it's really Celtic art at a very high level. Then you have people here in the audience this evening, younger people, Michael Keller, I see him coming in, and Wallace Hannon, Michael Keller's over here. and Martin Schultz, who's after doing a very nice piece up there, the antique shop up in Trust Street there recently, with these choice of colours really, were, I must say, stand out. So there are probably more here as well who are into Celtic art in different ways. So Stephen, you have a very, very discerning audience here this evening, so no pressure whatsoever. So I'll hand you over now to Stephen, and thank you very much.
First, I think we'll take 2 minutes for the
Fine.
presentation.
Yeah.
The alphabet.
Oh yeah, that's the Cara.
Cara
Yeah.
Trans.
Yeah. And look, thanks to Cara Tran, there is now an exhibition up in the Burnley Kennelly room that advice you look up and see. That really represents the work very well. And while Cara, you've taken the presentation there,
That's for the museum.
and you might just explain this, Stephen. I'll explain what it's all about.
No, it's the alphabet.
Yeah.
I will, because I have it on the slide.
Great. Yeah.
And just to say, I have brought down from the room the pieces that are on display here tonight, rather than having to go up a few flights of stairs, so you can see them here.
Just before I go on to Stephen, there are some more people in the audience. Yeah. That I see Owen McMahon when I came in there, and Jim McMahon, and one of his pieces on the store races. I don't think any of the Stokes guys are here, but the piece on the store races, Brian McMahon did the whole script for it, and Owen is here, see him coming in, which is a wonderful script. It's down at the back there. And also, there's another important individual here, well connected, is Owen Hand. And Owen is on at the back, you know, he was played with Ireland, manager of the Irish soccer team before Jack Charlton took it over and got all the credit. But the connection with Owen is that his mother owned the Brazen Head in Dublin, which is the oldest pub in the country, as you know. And Michael O'Connor did a special piece for the Brazen Head. So Owen came in tonight. I just caught him because there's that connection between Owen and Michael O'Connor as well. So that's just some of the background. And do you want to just say anything to it? So over to Stephen. Yeah.
We'll present that, and that's it. Okay?
Oh yeah. Right.
Just very briefly, these are a few early paintings by my father. They're not part, strictly speaking, of his Celtic illumination work, but they show some of his general skills as an artist. They're a set of the heads which are in the Custom House in Dublin, and they're art pieces done in classical style with an ink wash, which you can pass around and just look at yourselves after the talk, during the talk, and just to sort of get a sense of his skills just as an artist and as a calligrapher, apart altogether from his special skills as a Celtic illuminator. So I'm happy to have those thoughts.
Thank you.
Right, so Stephen, over to you now. And actually I knew his father, Professor Etienne Rynne. Some of you may have known him. He was one of the leading, I suppose, archaeologists in the country. So anyway, Stephen, over to you.
Thank you, Jimmy. Very little to say now. If you think that story was good, anyhow, I was walking in here today and I saw a man sitting on the bench looking at the statue of Brian McMahon, and I made a comment as I walked by, and I said, you know, if you look at him long enough, he'll talk back to you. And he had a laugh. We had a chat. Turns out his name is Michael O'Connor. Don't know how many are around the place, all over the place. Now, I'm starting off on the incorrect side here. Better see what I'm doing. Right, this particular slide, the reason I have the photograph here is to demonstrate. Oh, I'm sorry, I meant to say about what I'll say it afterwards. Right, to demonstrate that scale is of importance when it comes to Celtic art. Especially the likes of when you're using ink and paint and all sorts of things. A lot of these works are done in a very smooth way, as you can see. Now, let's go on. Well, what is Celtic art? It's a 20-second lesson here. The Latin period was 500 years BC to about 1 AD, to the birth of Christ. Insular art is what you would think of when you would think of the Book of Kells, the Book of Durham, Book of Lindisfarne. And modern Celtic art would be the last 150 years or so, right up until contemporary times. And your spirals, step patterns and key patterns, I'm sure you're all familiar with them, and if you're not, you will be. And they have been around since the ancient Celts, from sort of the 10 onwards then in Ireland. And knotwork has its origins in the Roman Empire, but didn't really hit us until about 400 AD and afterwards. Okay, so when you think of modern Celtic art, think about artists who have been inspired, who interpret, and who imitate as well. Now, the Celts went all over Europe, they went as far as Turkey. So when you ask yourself the question, is Listowel the world capital of modern Celtic art? That's your competition. Or at least it used to be your competition. But nowadays, with the advent of world travel and the advent of internet, in fact, Celtic art is being done all over the world. I was at a conference about 2 weeks ago where there was a speaker from Hawaii, of all places. Now, Listowel does have a sleeping giant. This is a list of the notable commissions, and only the notable commissions. There have been many more. The notable commissions that have been done by Listowel people over the last, I suppose, let's give it 70 or 80 years. Now that's some list from a town of 3,500 people. And if you think the question of Listowel being the world capital of modern Celtic art is one that you can't answer, I'd imagine that you'd look at that and say, well, at least it's a question that should be asked. Because you have 3 different popes. Oh God, some of the writing is off, I apologise for that. It might have been how it transferred. You have 3 different popes. You have a chief rabbi who was the first chief rabbi of Ireland and then the first chief rabbi of Israel. So essentially he was head of all the Jews around the world. I think you have 9 or 10 different presidents. One of them got pieces by Listowel people twice. And then you have future Queen Camilla, and you have a few Taoiseach and Lord Mayors, and the list goes on and on and on. Now, where did it all start? Well, it did, as far as I'm concerned, all start with Pat McAuliffe. Now, I'm sure a lot of you have heard of Pat McAuliffe. At least if you've walked this town, you certainly passed Pat McAuliffe's works, and you can recognise there what you have is the harp and line. And I'm particularly pleased that I have a picture of that fellow there. Martin Shoes. Bravo. But Martin is the 4th generation of painters, of shoot painters, I think 4th or 5th generation of shoot painters in Listowel. And there have been, a lot of this Celtic art wouldn't be as looking as good as it was without the shoot family. And And I think not only that, but Martin and his predecessors have done their own Celtic art. Unfortunately, what they've done is they've done their job and they've painted their Celtic art and it's come off, it doesn't exist anymore, it was essentially transferable, whereas the likes of McAuliffe's work isn't. But the shoots have been involved and are one of the main contributors of Celtic art over decades in this town. Of modern Celtic art, may I add. Nobody's talking about the Book of Kells here, except for my friend over there. Now, Pat McAuliffe's work is stucco work, as you can imagine just by looking at this particular piece. It will give you an idea of who McAuliffe was. Now, early 1900s, and he obviously was interested in various cultures. You have Maison de Ville, which is just a townhouse in French, Aaron Gobroth, and then you have the Latin over there, with your harp and your shamrocks and your line. He obviously put a collaboration or a collage of cultures together to produce